Live television.
All right. Hi, welcome to the Fireside Chat. We have Brian Whitmire and Thinking. And my name is Inga. I'm hosting the Q&A session today. And if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat.
Do we have sound? I forgot to ask.
I think so.
Do we have sound here or sound there? We have a.
It's here. I can hear
a
you.
shotgun.
We can hear you. We have sound.
We have one of the first questions is what is something that you with your whole company Meadows?
Oh, something that we're most proud of at Wilderness Labs. We're still friends. Barely.
Is there anything in particular you feel like is your pride and that you did more interesting?
Most proud of. At first I was thinking Meadow Foundation. Pretty awesome. I would basically made hardware in the Lego blocks. Right? Meadow Foundation, I think anyone can do hardware. But I think actually, for me personally, that I'm most proud of building is probably Project Lab. And it's because Project Lab is kind of it's for a couple of reasons. One, because of the outcome of what Project Lab is. Just like when we started this, in order to build hardware, it was really difficult. You had to, at a minimum, you had a breadboard, you had a prototype with breadboard, and there was a lot of nagling, and it's really unreliable. And it's kind of, it's just maybe, right? Or you had to solder stuff together, or you had to make these circuits and these kind of. There's like a big barrier to entry. And with Project Lab, the outcome is that you can immediately start building IoT solutions without any of that, without any barrier to entry. You basically get Project Lab and start looking already on it that you could use. There's like sensors, atmospheric sensors, accelerometer. There's lots of I/O response, and there's a display and all that. But also, you can plug in if what's on there is enough. So super enabler. But the thing that I'm most proud of about it is that I started finishing when I started Wilderness Labs, many years ago, I created a custom circuit. Take a Sharpie and draw on some stuff that you would have to iron. It's a PCB, and you drop it in this copper etch, and it was like a mess, right? And sort of gone from, so I was basically starting at zero and knowing the hardware. And we built this thing that is it's a really beautiful piece of hardware, and it's got like a really nice enclosure. And so to finish it, this really beautiful project, and it represents a personal journey into learning hardware. But then also makes hardware super easy. So I'm personally super proud of it. It's like, hey, I built that. As I showed up with my friends, the new version comes out. I'm like, hey, take that out. And they're like, well, that's honestly pretty cool. You look at it, there's like all these chips and stuff, and you look at it, this, what is it going to be? But it's really not. It's like I know all the pieces and but it's super functional. What about you, BK? What are you proud of?
Yeah, I think it's similar sentiment, just building, right? And just thinking back to when we started and conversation, you said, "Hey, I have this crazy idea." And thinking back from then, and Hello World running out on the controller. That was just, that was a huge accomplishment just in that, right?
Yeah.
And then with that stuff aside, also
that was like 2.5 years. Yeah, just get to Hello World, right? Because it was such a heavy lift.
freshman and seeing like what the team is now today and right, like all of that also came from it, right?
Yeah.
And I want to say like simple, but I want to say 80% of the team, like, it wasn't because of us, it's because people asked and wanted to. They were just interested and passionate about it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, we didn't have the hustle. Maybe for some things we did, but like we didn't have to go crazy trying to jump on.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's just like kind of a testament to what we're building and how cool it is. Yeah. So having DevCamp and your interest. Thank you so much for doing that. By the way. Yeah. So all of that. All of that is just really cool.
So like with the challenges, like you said, from going from the hardware to this, you feel like you're almost close there, or you feel like there's a lot more that you need to add to it, or like grow from there, or you feel like you have good set foundation. That is like something to be good to look.
Do you mean from like an enablement perspective of like someone and doing hardware? I mean, I think there's always more to do, but I think especially with the latest range of things, Meadow Desktop, for instance, now you don't even need, you can simulate and stuff without even having hardware. Also, I think that just having between the Meadow OS provides the full .NET ability on these pieces, plus Meadow Foundation. I mean, I think that is a revolutionary step forward in your development industry, period. Like, I can't think of anything. The closest is MicroPython, and this is still light years ahead of MicroPython. Like, it's so fast. You get speed, and you get all of the tooling that you get in .NET. And the thing about .NET is like it's got class, which are the world's best developer tooling like that. And I think pretty much everyone, sort of just, agrees with that. And so I think between the OS, .NET Runtime, and the foundation that we have bridged that gap. And I do think that it's, you still, as a .NET developer, just like if you were building mobile apps with Maui or Xamarin or Apple, there's still things to learn. But we've removed such a massive barrier that it's not totally accessible for people who have never done it.
Would you say that you see that, like, in the future, like your project is on par with Raspberry Pi and Arduino? Like, is that the goal to be one of the leading names in the industry?
Huh. That's interesting. I think maybe aspiration, like maybe the ego perspective, it would be cool if people knew if it was a household name the way that Arduino was. But ultimately, I think as long as we make our ecosystem happy, there's nothing. I just say, having built platforms before, meeting someone off the street and chatting with them about something, and then they tell you how work on this, or you built this thing, and they're like, yeah, I'm doing these, apps. I'm building Xamarin apps. So this is really funny. I responded to an Uber one time, and this woman was describing what she was doing, and she was transitioning out of being an Uber driver. She had been through Xamarin University, and she had just landed this little development job with Xamarin. And she had asked me about what I was doing or whatever, and we got where we were. I was talking about Xamarin University and having built Xamarin University and all those things. She couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe that, like, I had built this thing that like had a new career. Like, it's been a big part of that. And there's nothing like building a platform and enabling folks and seeing that delight, seeing their joy. So I don't think Raspberry Pi, I think we just make people happy. You know?
Yeah, video cut out, but sound is there.
So pro, man.
I think we just use my computer screen.
That's fine. Yeah, sounds good. Just put it on the
Foundation.
Start.
And now we need to
Why don't you the streaming?
Yeah.
Streaming art?
yeah. Well, now it was
Hey.
here. Well, I'm gonna get out of this.
All right.
Maybe I can use this.
Oh yeah, better.
Right.
Sweet.
Okay.
Right.
Hey,
Cool.
all right.
And yeah. Well, sorry. I think because that. Yeah, we're gonna go back to here. We're back.
And
We're back.
That looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I just want to touch on kind of the previous question on bridging the gap between kind of like software and hardware developers. And I guess generally how I learn, even with software, is like I think about what I want to build as far as like a project or something, and then I figure out like how do I go do that. And hardware is very much the same, right? You're thinking about like how do I automate my sprinkler system, and then I have to go and figure out like what kind of tools or resources that I have, right?
Yeah.
And hardware is just like another step beyond software, because there's different like sensors and peripherals and controls that you can use. So it's just like another, I guess, dimension beyond software, right? So, part of that will take like the curiosity of software developers to take that leap. But we try to make that easier with things like recipes. We have a whole bunch of samples in our repository, and like Hackster, we have how many do we have? Like 100 different samples there now, so that you can take these recipes for things like if you want to control your sprinkler with like a relay, or other things like the weather station, right? We have those IoT accelerators also. So that we can build kits and different tools and recipes so that those who are curious and interested and willing to take that next step can, right? So
I think you compose them, like if you
exactly.
like complex solutions are really just lots of little solutions put together.
Right, it's like we have recipes for like an appetizer and a dessert and a main course, but you can put those all together and make a nice meal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of our goal as far as implementation and samples. So.
Would you say has there been any projects that you've seen that people use from Meadows that has been something that has fascinated you, that they were able to convert or use it for a certain reason, like farming or like maybe games or something like that?
I think the fact that some of that, like the Mojang guys built that gaming engine just kind of blows you away, right? It's just pretty cool to see. I had never considered Meadow as a gaming platform, and now they've got this full-featured gaming engine, and that, I don't know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the cool thing about building a platform is like you have no idea what customers are going to do with it, right? So it could be an ag tech or defense, and like every time we have a talk with a customer, they're building something crazy that we had no idea about, right? Like automating like forklifts or something like that. Like, so we have or some part of a car, right, is going to get automated. So yeah, the applications are endless, right? And always inspiring and like, cool to hear about for sure. Yeah.
So how would you say you stay connected with your customers, when it comes to like ideas or like questions about the product and everything like that?
Slack, for sure. We're all in Slack all the time. We talk to people all the time. People email us at hello. We have our hello at Wilderness Labs. And we start conversations there, but they inevitably wind up, either in Slack or on a Zoom call.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to get engagement from us, is to go on our public Slack and register. We have like a forums and email that we do. check, but nothing as much as.
Yeah. And the whole team's there, so
Yeah.
like we're all chatting. And
So-
everyone's friendly, like we've got a really like positive and friendly community.
So with the whole like connecting with customers, like, and if someone wanted to, what other resources would you say is available for someone to get started, like with the project lab, that other than the Slack channel, you want to ask questions and everything, if they wanted to get something started, you guys have tutorials, blogs?
Yeah, Jorge has made some really fantastic content around that. So if you do get a project lab, there's just a pile of samples. You get a little card that gives you a URL, and you go to that URL, and it goes to the GitHub page for the project lab board, and that's where you'll find like the source, the hardware source, the application source, and a pile of samples, and then pointers to the Hackster page with piles of samples and recipes there too.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to get started.
Do you have any like long-term aspirations for the company?
Long-term
Oh, yes.
aspirations. You know what? I want Wilderness Labs to be the de facto, the go-to platform. If you're a .NET developer and you want to do IoT, you want to try to get into hardware, and you're heading towards building professional applications, it's just no question. It's like go to Wilderness Labs, get a Meadow, and build.
Do you have like any
Yeah.
features that are in the works now, like other than the cloud and the .NET and the other projects in web?
Yep.
Or is that just like you have to wait till like, find out, like, subscribe and then?
We got some really big stuff happening in the next 6 months. So we had, it's funny because we announced so many things at DevCamp, right? It's almost hard to keep track of all the things. And the next 6 months, we've got another set of things that are, I would say, just as transformative as what we announced. One thing I'll I've talked about this publicly before, so I'll give some hints around here, but a lot of the platform is open source today. And one of the things that we are doing next is fully open sourcing the Meta OS stack. And we're gonna open that up to a lot more platforms and opportunities, because what we've done is we've created this, this like embedded OS that really feels like a mobile OS. It's like so up level. It's got all these things that just don't exist in other places. And we've spent years on this, and because we came to this, it's really interesting. We came to the embedded space as developers who have worked on the best tooling and the best platform forever. We were used to all these predictive tooling, and then we get into the embedded space where a lot of this hasn't changed since the 70s, and so we brought all this modern stuff, and so we'd really like to give that back to the community, open that up. So I think a big thing that we're going to do is get the Meta OS open sourced and bring other platforms and other communities to it, and that's huge.
Yeah, and on a similar vein, like when I'm talking to customers, and I talked to a bunch of folks at DevCamp yesterday, and they're just talking about how if there's some sort of commercial application, it's a closed system, right? And coming from software and open source, that's just such an old way of thinking, right? To have closed systems, to maintain control and commercializing things. And something that would be amazing is that if we were to able to just kind of change the culture of embedded and have an open system, right? And everything that we're building, from open source to cloud, and empowering companies to build things on top of the platform, not in a way to stifle competition, but to integrate things, right? And having that
Build everyone up.
Everyone, right? Like rising tide brings everybody up. Right? So kind of changing that culture in the embedded world, like the embedded commercial world especially, that would be a huge shift, and something that I think is needed for the disruption in this space.
We actually got a question from the chat. It says, when will Meadow Cloud be available to the public?
Yeah, so we did announce the roadmap for Meadow Cloud, and we have logs and dashboarding and event streaming and command and control. So we're actively working on those. We hope to get that done Q3 timeframe. So sometime in July, we're hoping to release that for general availability.
Yeah. But if you're interested in getting on it today, send us an email. So
there should be a form on the site where you can sign up, and I was adding people last night. So yes, definitely open.
Do you feel like there was any like learning curves with building up everything, or like what was one of the major ones that you guys?
Oh man, I'm sorry. Yeah, boy, was there a learning curve in embedded? Yeah, I mean, going back 40 years in time on tooling and these frameworks, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we had to learn, like I said in the keynote yesterday, like we had to become hardware experts, and none of us. I mean, Chris Taggy was a hardware expert. He's like built everything under the sun, but like I wasn't a hardware expert. BK wasn't a hardware expert. We were just software experts, and we know what it's like to build in a productive environment. We know what it's like to be productive and be able to get your ideas, that are up here and get them like out into the world. And so, yeah, we absolutely, we learned a lot about hardware. And that's one of the things that we've been working so hard is demystifying that for our customers as well, because a lot of these things, like the hardware supply chain, has gotten so much easier. Like spinning custom PCBs, for instance, like that. I literally, we used to iron those things, and then you had this caustic acid, and you pour it in your plastic Tupperware, and then you drop in your copper clad board, and then you drill hand. It was a nightmare. Now, you can spin a PCB in a couple hours, and then for $30 or whatever, $15, you can have that PCB professionally made, fabricated, and back to you in a week, right? Through JLC PCB or these other ones. And now with like SMT technology, placing those, like actually building that super, super easy. Anyone can do it. It's really anyone. It's a super accessible thing because things have changed on the hardware side so much. So yeah, like it's been super important to us to take the things that we had struggles with, the things that we had to learn, and then we had to learn them the hard way and like simplify those. Like that's been, yeah, exactly. Like we don't want to reinvent the wheel. What we want to do is like give that knowledge that we have, that we've learned, to our customers, so they don't have to have those struggles that we did, right?
Yeah, there are definitely product challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing the work and making Meadow and all that kind of stuff. Less interesting is that there were business challenges, I'll say, right? So it required a lot of perseverance, a lot of stressful nights,
Great.
a lot of hard conversations, but just enduring that and getting to where we are. Yeah, there were so many points where we could have given up or stopped, right?
Yeah.
And just continuing to, go over hurdle after hurdle. It's like a common startup story, right? Every founder will say that, but persevering and getting through those challenges has been not like an unforeseen challenge, but definitely a challenge, right? And working on stuff and building things, like as engineers, like we kind of know what to expect there, right? You just have to do the work, and it's somewhat in your control, but going out and trying to raise money, there's just a lot of uncontrollable factors. So yeah, there's definitely some.
And we thought that we'd get to Hello World with Mono, with net
in months.
6 months.
Yeah, but it took
2.5 years. Like we were in stealth mode for 3 years before we launched our Kickstarter. Because then we had to get far enough that it was a viable product.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, like, how long was it just the two of you before you started building up and then going on to propositioning and doing the Kickstarter and everything like that?
There's 3 co-founders. One, I wish he could be here today, but he's a real genius behind this. Jeff, he's the one that actually built a lot of the original Xamarin technology. So he created Mono Mac and Mono for Android, Mono Droid, Mono Touch, and he got Mono running on embedded device. And so there were 3 of us to begin with, and honestly, folks found out about what we were doing because we have kind of an interesting origin story. We acquired NetDuino, which was an old, so Microsoft had this .NET micro framework, which was like a .NET 1.0 thing. And it was very limited, but it was fun. It was like the first time .NET developers could actually do hardware. And you didn't even have generics, or you couldn't go grab NuGet packages and the way that you can with full .NET and stuff. But we used that as a place to sort of like prototype ideas, and like we came up with NetDuino Foundation. We as a prototype for Meadow Foundation. We couldn't do all of the great architectural things that we wound up being able to do once we had .NET, but we at least were able to like sort of try things out and sort of feel our way. And what happened was that almost immediately, folks from the community started to engage with us and started to sign up and work on the team, like almost immediately. Like Mark Stevens came on. It was like months into this, and Mark Stevens joined, and then other folks came along. Adrian Stevens joined, and folks, they just kept coming to us, and so we never. That's like we never felt. I never felt lonely, like because we had a team almost immediately. People were like, "We want what you're building, right? And we want to build this because this is what we do as well." Like everyone on the team is building this because this is what they want. I mean, I remember Chris Tacky. I'm on top of a mountain, and I get this email from Chris, and he says, "I want to come work for you, and I think you want to come. I think you want me to come work for you too." He was right. He was right. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, we almost immediately had a team and a community supporting us, even like before we announced the Meadow, just like what we were doing with the old micro framework stuff, was so inspiring to folks because there's such a built-in market here. There's so many people that want to do, like, being able to put computing anywhere is the next epoch in computing, in the compute form factor, right? And so there's this huge demand, and then you've got these 10 million .NET developers out there. You cross those, and there's huge built-in demand for these folks that like want to use their existing skills. They want to use their languages that they love, C#, F#, .NET. They want to use all this code that they've written over years of get packages. So like it just sort of snowballed from a team.
Yeah, and listening to the panel yesterday, they were all kind of saying like, we wish there was a platform like what we're building, right? Way back when, and just through a confluence of things, right? Knowing Chris Walker and .NET becoming open sourced, but all at the same time, where you just thought, hey, like we do this, right? And it was kind of where opportunity meets preparation, right? And so we just kind of took that, went with it, and like alluding to what I said earlier, like the team, like I said earlier, like the team, we did a team came to us, right? Because people, gravitated towards this idea of what should have been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like one of the interesting comments that I heard, like, is like, you're building exactly what I wanted 20 years ago, like what I needed. It's like, like now I'm able to have it in my hand.
That's right.
And also, hats off to the folks that came before us. Like we are built on open source technology. We're built on the shoulders of giants. We talk about like the things that Jeff Norton did to create the things that became Xamarin, and then also, like Miguel de Icaza and the things that Xamarin, like we wouldn't be able to do this without Xamarin, like the JIT pipeline and our AOT technology, and even just .NET running outside of Windows, like Mono was an open source alternative to .NET originally because these folks wanted to run .NET on Linux. And so Miguel created this Mono project and, for years ran that before it was ever a commercial viable thing, before it ever made anyone any money. And but then Xamarin happened, and like we stood on the shoulders of all of the tech that we created at Xamarin. I mean, the ARM backend for this, in fact, like that was all created for, like Jeff did that ARM backend so that you could run mono on mobile devices, because all of a sudden all these we get supercomputers in our pockets and they're all ARM chips, right? But that's what so many of these IoT devices are running as well. They're like ARM 32 chips or ARM 16-bit chips. There's other ones as well, but like that was possible because of this open source, these open source giants that like really paved the way.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's see, we have 8 more questions. So what is some advice that you would give to people who are starting out, like with the whole learning aspect, and if they reach a building block, what is something that you would give them that you have learned yourself?
So if you're starting out and you want to build something, you want to get into hardware, my advice is figure out something that you want to build, right?
Yeah.
If there's something that you want to build, like just you have to.
You can start with an idea, right? No project.
Yeah.
Think of the question, I want my coffee machine to turn on, so like this is how I'm going to do it. Or
That's
Exactly,
right.
you're
That's
right.
exactly it. And then break it down into pieces, because even the most complex IoT solution or any solution is really just the composition of lots of little solutions, right? If you look at complex IoT projects, it's like, well, like look at this Nest thermostat over here. It's like, okay, well, there's a display. Okay, so let me work and learn on how to do some display stuff. And there's some input stuff. Okay, let me figure out how to do this input. Let me figure out how to do, okay, so then we've got to control an HVAC system. It's like, okay, there's this simple part, which is like on and off of a relay. I've got to turn things on and off. And then how do I make that efficient? Then there's the PID algorithm. So you just break these things down and just have an idea that you're marching towards, and just make a list of things that you need to do and learn how to do each one of those things. And pretty soon you're there. Pretty soon you have this full featured solution.
Yeah, super practically speaking, there's a couple things you can do. So one, we have an electronics tutorial on the site that it's very good. So it just teaches you like the basics of electricity, how that kind of stuff works. And then I would start working with a breadboard, not even connected to a Meadow, but like just a battery, to figure out how the breadboard works, to like blink an LED, or maybe plug in the push button to turn the LED on or off, right? With like a 9-volt battery. Super practical, something that you can do. And then you can start plugging the Meadow to like control the LED just with like an application that you write. And that would be like 101, right? Connect your Meadow, plug an LED through the breadboard or there's onboard LED. So that would be like a very practical way to start. And then from there, it demystifies a lot, right? Like, oh, okay, that's not so bad. Then you figure out how to like plug in a servo and start spinning something. But without Meadow Foundation, it's a daunting task, because then you have to go figure out the driver. But we take all that out, right? So you just plug it in, you download the NuGet package, and you can start doing that stuff. So it's not that bad, right? Just start trying.
You can do it.
You can do it. Trial and error, right? It's just like software, right? You just kind of build on what you learn every day, right? Just day by day, learn a little bit more, learn a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and then you'll have no limits.
Because we were all new to this at one point. Like I remember learning how to program. Like everyone starts. The first day you're sitting in front of a piano, you're like, man, this is really hard. And now 6 months later, you're playing some play.
That's why I said, right, it just takes the initiative and curiosity, right, for an engineer to want to try new things and learn something else. So
yeah,
it's not that bad.
Little baby steps to think of, okay, well, this is how this solution got into this, and this is how it can be applied to all these other things.
Yeah,
exactly.
And find folks to build with. That can be super helpful too. Because when you run into a roadblock, you get someone to bounce ideas off of.
Yes. It's clear up your whole mentality. Like, oh, I didn't see it from that perspective.
Yeah, and like on our Slack channel, we have like a hardware noob channel. Ask questions there, and Chris Tacky will probably answer it. I'll be very nice about it, 100%. So yeah.
I think this is it for questions that we have, and I'd like to thank you for your time. Everyone can be able to go join the public Slack channel that they have, and be able to connect with the team and ask all the questions. They are very, very responsive, so don't feel like there's ever a question, because I'm sure we've all had those questions before.
The stupid question is the one not asked.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you again for hosting.
Thanks for
You had a great
hosting.
show.
It was fantastic.
All right. That's it.
See you guys later.
Here we go.
Come on, Leah. Come on, Leah.
I can't do it.
Staying online.
Why is this not working? You're gonna see my face. I can't click the button. Why is it? It literally will not.
I'm already on the camera.
It'll